This is not a story about raising your voice. This is a manual for using your dignity as leverage and your documents as weapons. It is the tactical guide to reclaiming authority when others attempt to erase your competence through the subtle, systemic violence of ageism. We chase ageism out of rooms not by shouting, but by citing the rule number. We reverse injustice not with raw emotion, but with the specific clause, the pre-read policy, the recorded statement. Our power lies not in volume, but in precision. Justice starts small. It starts with a centered breath. It starts when a witness, previously silent, pulls out their phone, hits record, and the room goes suddenly, terrifyingly still. It is the moment the narrative shifts from personal grievance to institutional non-compliance. 3 words that freeze financial abuse at home. Show the deed. 4 words that dismantle bureaucratic arrogance. Cite the hyper-release. Better than shouting, the rule that ends the argument. Cited calmly, quietly, its official weight crushing the flimsy edifice of ego and assumed authority. One quiet gesture, the placement of a highlighted contract on the table, and that document speaks louder than any threat, proving that preparation is the ultimate antidote to dismissal. I've seen this scene play out 100 times. The dismissive wave, the patronizing tone. Bless your heart, dear, we've got this handled. The slow, systematic erasure of competence until you are just an inconvenient obstacle, a fading signature on a history they desperately want to rewrite. They want you to react emotionally, to confirm their narrative. He's lost it. She's too volatile. They are obsolete. But there is a necessary shift. In 24 hours, accountability in the event hall. This is the account of Arthur, and the day his policy knowledge, not his volume, ended a hostile takeover of his own legacy, demonstrating how quiet, documented resistance is superior to loud, emotional defiance. The uninvited founder, policy over posture. Arthur founded Novatech 20 years ago. He built it from a garage startup to a global leader, navigating financial crises, technological revolutions, and intense regulatory shifts. He didn't just understand the software. He understood the complex, interlocking covenants that protected the soul of the business from short-sighted opportunism. He was 72, sharp as cut glass, mentally rigorous, but physically slow to adapt to the new C-suite's pervasive culture of performative aggression and rapid, often ill-conceived, decision-making. They called the new, younger, aggressive executive team the Succession Committee. Arthur called them the people who forgot to read the bylaws, focusing instead on PowerPoint presentations and venture capital buzzwords. The conflict centered on the annual Future Summit, the biggest day of the year, the public unveiling of the company's strategic direction. This year, the committee, led by the charismatic, ruthless CEO Marcus, was announcing a radical, risky pivot, a divestiture of Novatech's core IP in favor of an untested AI platform, a move Arthur fundamentally opposed, and that would jeopardize the company's financial stability. Arthur was scheduled to sit on the main stage, center dais, an honor and requirement established by his long-standing role. But 15 minutes before the launch, Marcus's assistant appeared, radiating the kind of false concern that precedes a knife in the back. "Mr. Davies," she said, her voice dripping with forced sweetness, designed to infantilize. "We've had to make a slight adjustment. We're moving you to the second row, darling. Visibility is better there for the cameras. We want those young faces in the spotlight, don't we?" Arthur looked at the empty seat. It was prominently marked with his name and title, embossed in heavy script. Founder, Chief Governance Officer, Class A stockholder. The chair next to it, reserved for the CEO, Marcus, sat empty, a spatial invitation to power. The dismissiveness wasn't subtle. It was systemic. It was ageism dressed up as efficiency and optics. Their goal was clear: publicly minimize his physical presence to neutralize his institutional authority before the critical announcement. They needed the audience, the investors, and the media to perceive him as a peripheral, retired figurehead, easily ignored. The common human mistake is to react instantly, emotionally, to argue about history, to demand respect based on personal investment, or to engage in a shouting match. I built this company. You owe me this seat. How dare you move me after 20 years of service? That reaction, the raw, spontaneous defense, uses up your emotional capital and instantly validates the hidden narrative. He's emotional. He's unstable. He's obsolete. See? He can't handle the pressure. The moment you raise your voice in anger, you concede the intellectual ground to their calm, calculated disrespect. Arthur paused. He did not raise his voice. He shifted his weight imperceptibly, adjusting the slight, heavy weight in his inside jacket pocket. Not a weapon, but the folded, highlighted, and annotated printout of the Corporate Governance Agreement, Section 4.1. This was his shield and his sword. He met the assistant's eye, not with anger, but with centered calm, the calm of total preparation. His voice was low and steady, requiring her to lean in, forcing her attention, reversing the power dynamic. "Thank you, dear," he said, "but I must insist on the seating arrangements outlined in the final planning memo, which corresponds directly to the standing order for Class A stockholders on the dais. Deviations require documented approval from the governance board, which I have not authorized." She smiled, a rehearsed plastic mask designed to deflect documentation with charm. "It's just better for the optics, Arthur. We need younger faces up front today to show our dynamism." That sentence, "we need younger faces up front," was the key. It was the proof that ends the excuse. It was the explicit acknowledgement of bias, delivered publicly, which Arthur knew could be weaponized later. Arthur had been preparing for this exact public slight for weeks, understanding that their goal was to publicly isolate him before the final, critical vote on the pivot. He pulled his phone, unlocked it, and performed the first action of documented dignity. The action. Silence is evidence. Arthur did not hit record yet. He sent a pre-drafted coded text to his key ally, Helena, the company's head of legal compliance, who was waiting backstage, briefed on the potential escalation. The message was one word: move. This meant, prepare the official documents and be ready to enter the stage on command. He waited for the assistant to retreat awkwardly. Then, quietly, without drama, Arthur moved his heavy, structured briefcase and sat down exactly where the reserve sign dictated, next to the CEO, Marcus. He took up the space he was contractually entitled to. Marcus walked in seconds later, saw Arthur firmly seated, and his face went visibly pale with tightly controlled fury. The plan to marginalize Arthur had already failed before the lights came up. The stage lights went up, the music swelled, a theatrical anthem of corporate innovation. The audience, thousands strong, settled into expectant silence. Marcus stepped confidently to the microphone, radiating practiced executive dominance, ready to announce the shift that would sideline Arthur permanently and cement Marcus's legacy. He glanced at Arthur, leaning close to his ear, his voice low and toxic. "Arthur, I warned you. This is highly unprofessional. If you can't adhere to protocol and step back, I'll have security escort you to the green room for your own comfort. You're confusing the floor plan." The threat was clear. Leave the table. Accept your diminished status. Arthur executed the second calm step. He reached into his pocket, not for a retraction, but for the most powerful tool of justice: policy. He laid the folded document flat on the glass table, centering it precisely between himself and Marcus. It was highlighted in bright yellow, the text visible under the harsh stage lighting. Nova Tech Corporate Governance Agreement, Section 4.1. He then executed the third step. He pressed the physical button on his phone that instantly begins high-quality audio recording, preset as a shortcut. The phone remained in his lap, screen dark, capturing every inflection of the confrontation. He waited for the applause to die down completely. The atmosphere was charged. Marcus, already sweating under the lights and the pressure of Arthur's unyielding presence, leaned into his microphone to begin his opening statement about vision and future opportunities. Arthur used his own, carefully lowered voice, a tone of professional obligation, not personal antagonism, ensuring the sound technician was forced to adjust his volume up to balance the sound. "Marcus?" Arthur interrupted gently, turning his body slightly toward the CEO, forcing Marcus to face him and the policy document on the table. "Before you proceed with the strategic announcement, I need absolute clarification on the specific voting protocol required for this pivot announcement." He did not accuse. He did not demand. He asked for clarification on procedure. This reframed his action from disruption to due diligence. Marcus bristled, his impatience overriding his caution. "That's not on the agenda, Arthur. We discussed this. We'll handle governance later, in committee. Today is about vision. We have 5,000 people waiting." "Section 4.1 of the governance agreement," Arthur stated, his voice steady, low, and perfectly clear, amplified by the technician's adjustment. He tapped the highlighted document once, the sound echoing slightly through the House speakers. "It requires unanimous approval from all sitting Class A stockholders for any restructuring announcement exceeding 25% valuation change. I am a sitting Class A stockholder, confirmed by the 2018 amendment, and I have not signed." The phrase, "I am a sitting Class A stockholder," was the sentence that stopped the table. It was the policy citation that crushed the narrative of obsolescence. The room, moments ago thrumming with anticipation, went silent. The camera feed, displaying live on massive screens, focused tightly on Marcus's face. He was visibly trapped. He had publicly implied Arthur had zero authority, yet Arthur had calmly, professionally cited the exact policy that gave him absolute, non-negotiable veto power over the day's agenda and the pivot. Marcus tried desperately to dismiss him again, relying on pure ego and the assumption of Arthur's cognitive decline. "Arthur, you are retired from active duty. Your advisory role is non-voting in operational matters. Your signature is procedural, not substantive." Arthur smiled slightly. It was a cold, confident look, the look of a man who knows the fine print. This was the core bias that cost the House. Marcus had based his entire strategy on the assumption that an older person with advisory status was a paper tiger, functionally incompetent, and unable to read or recall the terms of his own contract. "That is false," Arthur stated, letting the recorded statement hang in the air. "And that is why I asked Helena to join us, as the company's head of legal compliance." The side door opened instantly. Helena, the head of legal compliance, a formidable woman in her 40s who respected Arthur's meticulousness and rigor, walked onto the stage with purpose. She was not Arthur's friend. She was the company's rule keeper, the living embodiment of the rule book. She carried a thick, leather-bound volume, the official corporate bylaws. Helena moved immediately to the shared microphone. This was the power of the ally. Not to fight your fight, but to lend formal, institutional weight to your documented truth. She spoke to the audience, bypassing Marcus entirely. "Mr. Davies is correct," Helena announced, her voice amplifying the authority of the rules, not her personal opinion. "Per the unanimous shareholder agreement of 2005, reinforced by the 2018 amendment on corporate succession, which Mr. Marcus personally ratified, Section 4.1 requires a physical, non-transferable signature from Mr. Davies prior to the announcement of a pivot exceeding 25% valuation change." The atmosphere shifted from excitement to palpable shock. Marcus's vision was dead before he could even pitch it. The most effective justice tool doesn't shout. It is the rule, weaponized by precision and timing. "Marcus," Arthur said, standing up slowly, his posture straight and authoritative, reclaiming his space and his dignity on the dais. "I asked you for the policy, and you responded with ego. I asked for clarification, and you responded with a threat to remove me from this stage." He gestured to the policy document on the table, still highlighted in neon yellow. The proof was physical, present, and incontrovertible. "This is not personal disruption," Arthur continued, speaking to the entire room, his voice now commanding respect. "This is governance. You failed to secure the necessary approval required by Section 4.1. That lack of due diligence in a fiduciary context is a failure of leadership." He looked directly at the main cameras, addressing the investors and the board remotely. "This meeting is now suspended until due process is honored, and the full board reviews this failure of required governance." The very authority Marcus used to try and sideline Arthur was instantly reversed. The failure to honor the documents became the documented reason for his own suspension. Within the hour, Marcus was escorted out of the building, his contract suspended pending review of the documented breach of fiduciary duty. The visible outcome: the pivot announcement failed, the risky contract was cancelled, and Arthur, the marginalized elder, reclaimed his essential role in setting the governance standard for the entire organization. The day the deed spoke, or in this case, the day the policy spoke, was the day Arthur reversed his status from institutional nuisance to necessary authority. Big assets require bigger dignity, backed by ironclad documentation. Digspiel is justice preparation, the 10-minute ritual. Justice is preparation. Dignity is documentation. When facing ageism, whether in a family meeting over savings, a condo board dispute over rules, a healthcare battle over patient rights, or a corporate setting over authority, you must prepare not for war, but for undeniable clarity. Your ability to calmly cite the text defeats the emotional power of the bully. I call this the justice prep ritual. It requires 10 minutes of absolute, focused discipline before the high-stakes confrontation. This ritual transforms you from a victim reacting to a prepared professional asserting rights. 1. Centered breath and posture. 2 minutes. The body holds the stress. If you enter shaking, speaking rapidly, or slumped, you telegraph panic and confirm the aggressor's narrative that you are unstable. Stand up. Roll your shoulders back and down. Ground your feet. Breathe deeply, focusing on slow, deliberate exhales. Count of 4 in, hold 4, count of 6 out. Center your gravity. Adopt the strong, non-confrontational posture of someone who knows they are right, not someone who hopes they are right. Your physical stillness must communicate unshakable authority. Benefit: safety, lowered heart rate, improved voice modulation, avoiding the shaky or high-pitched tone of panic, and commanding immediate, if reluctant, respect. 2. The evidence file. 3 minutes. Never rely on memory. Your memory can be dismissed, gaslighted, or contradicted. The documented text cannot. Have the single critical piece of evidence ready and physically present. If it's a family meeting or trust issue, the trust deed, the specific bank statement showing joint ownership, the recorded power of attorney, POA date, or the specific probate law section. If it's a corporate or HOA dispute, the specific policy number, the rule citation, the contract section, or the date of the governing amendment. Highlight it. Put a sticky note on it with the exact citation number. EEG, Section 4.1, ratified 2018 DOST. Practice the neutral, non-emotional phrase you will use. Do not personalize the fight. Example phrases: I would like the person in charge and a copy of the policy. Or, I am adhering to Bylaw 12B, which I have here. Or, my durable power of attorney, registered June 2021, dictates this decision. Benefit: clarity, immediate and irrefutable leverage, and forces the aggressor to argue with an institution, the document, rather than an individual, you. 3. Set the record. 2 minutes. Documentation is safety. Know the fastest, most reliable way to activate your phone's camera or audio recorder. Create a physical button shortcut or a voice command. In many jurisdictions, recording is legal if you are a party to the conversation, but laws vary dramatically. Always know your local rules regarding one-party consent. Make sure the time and location are noted, either mentally or on a quick note, for metadata confirmation later. Set up the phone where it will capture the voice clearly, but won't become a visible confrontation point until needed, e.g., in a lap or behind a closed book. The goal is to record their words, not to create a fight over the camera. Benefit: irrefutable proof against later denials, gaslighting, or claims of misunderstanding. A recording transforms subjective recollection into objective evidence. Filter: activate the ally. 3 minutes. Never go into a high-stakes scenario alone if you can. Avoid it. Choose an ally who is neutral, institutional, and ideally bound by fiduciary duty, not just sympathetic. This might be a lawyer, a mediator, a head of compliance, like Helena, or simply a trusted, objective friend who agrees to be available for a call-in or to receive the audio file immediately post-confrontation. The ally's role is not to fight the battle for you, but to validate your truth and provide formal consequence. Arthur didn't just have Helena waiting. He had a coded signal ready that meant, the policy is needed now. When the opposition realizes your truth is about to be validated by a professional third party, their ego-driven attack instantly collapses. Benefit: shift the dynamic from your word against theirs to documented truth, acknowledged and reinforced by a third party with institutional standing. This is the highest level of protection. Jump the anatomy of the policy attack. Ageism in governance relies on the assumption that you lack the energy or the cognitive capacity to engage with complexity. They will try 3 tactics. Tactic 1, the dismissal of memory. The aggressor says, "Oh, you must be misremembering that section, Arthur. It was updated last year." Your document response: "I understand. I am referencing section 4.1, reinforced by the amendment signed by you on October 15, 2018. The date is highlighted here." Point to the document. Tactic 2, the evasion of policy. The aggressor says, "We don't need policy right now. This is about consensus and vision." Your document response: "Consensus is important, but governance is mandatory. The law, bylaw, trust requires this step. We must adhere to the rule before we discuss vision. Reiterate the rule's necessity." Tactic 3, the threat of removal, ostracization. The aggressor says, "If you continue to disrupt this meeting, we will have to suspend your privileges, ask you to leave, refer this to a review board." Your document response: maintain calm. I am operating within my rights as established by this document. I need the specifics of the rule you claim I am breaking, and I would like to confirm that you understand this entire conversation is being recorded for the integrity of the process. Introduce the recording evidence. Calm courage is not recklessness. If a situation involves immediate physical threat or escalating aggression, withdraw immediately. Your safety always outweighs the need for justice in that specific moment. Document the threat and immediately escalate via formal channels, police, adult protective services, or relevant governance boards. Laws around financial power of attorney, guardianship, healthcare directives, and property vary dramatically by jurisdiction. Arthur's success hinged on knowing the precise governance rules of his specific company. Your success hinges on knowing the specific rules of your specific situation. The condo bylaws, the trust document, the rental agreement, the specific medical form, e.g., the MOLST or DNR. Adapt the strategy to the document, not the personality. The shift is simple. Stop focusing on their disrespect. Focus entirely and exclusively on the rule they are breaking, the contract they are violating, or the law they are ignoring. Let the policy beat the ego. Let the documentation expose the bias. Your next step, the shield of competence. The truth is, ageism relies entirely on the assumption of your incompetence. It relies on the belief that you haven't read the documents, that you are too tired or confused to cite the text. Prove them devastatingly wrong. The greatest defense against ageism, financial coercion, and institutional dismissal is competence, dignity, and irrefutable proof. Your action today. Choose one high-stakes scenario in your life: a family discussion about finances, a bureaucratic encounter, an HOA conflict. Identify the single most important policy or document governing that situation. Find the number, read the specific section, highlight it, save the policy number in your phone. Practice the one calm phrase you will use to reference it, ensuring it is devoid of emotional commentary, and practice your 10-minute justice prep ritual. Let that knowledge be your shield.